We are now live. This is Dee's Practice Pod. This is episode 2. I have with me Mr. Dwayne Sarden, who goes by the name Dee Wiz. I've known this man for a very long time.
Very long.
Since actually junior high.
Maybe
About
before
then?
that. No, we're in
Maybe before.
Sunday school together.
Yes. Now let's. I'll put. You don't have to put these on. I just want to make sure. We had a little bit of an issue with the sound on our last one. Just want to make sure that you're nice and
Talk to
audible.
me.
Oh, that's good.
Good.
Okay. Fortunately for us, my first guest was Frank Bellucci, and he's a very gregarious guy. So you could hear him loud and clear, even though, yeah, pretty much.
That was allowed.
Yeah, we got a lot to talk over.
Yeah.
You know, that and most of us are quite deaf by the time we hit 40.
Absolutely. Yeah, drummer's allowed.
I guess that's a question for you. You have any hearing problems?
I'm sure I do. You know, I mean, I favor my right ear. You know, especially when I'm out and like I'll have my monitor definitely on my right or whatever. So
Right.
I've never been.
You got
tested.
cans on a lot, though, right?
Yes, and
Yeah.
this is what I'll do.
Yep.
You know,
Okay.
I'll take the right ear off.
Mhm.
I've never been tested, you know, and I don't think most musicians have because I think we know already. It's like, yo,
Yeah.
I have so much damage coming home 3 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, and you know that ringing, that
Tinnitus,
drive
yeah,
home, and it's there up until when you get in your bed. That
Right.
ringing is still there from
Sure.
the gig.
Right.
That's got to
Yeah.
be damage.
Oh, it is. Well, I've been able to stave it off. I put plugs in.
You do.
I've been doing it for a very, very long time.
You have.
Yes, and it's
Let's talk about that because there are those that do,
right.
and there are those that don't. That are like,
Well, a lot of guys that don't. The reason why is because, firstly, one crazy thing that I've heard before is, well, if you have any damage, it's a sacrifice for your art. That to me sounds kind of stupid, especially if you plan on living for a long time and plan on playing for a long time. You know. I could tell you firstly one of the reasons for the hearing loss. What happens is as you're playing to something that's loud, your ears are designed for somewhere between 80 and 90 decibels, which is approximately what I'm speaking to you at, and they are tuned to a mid-range, which is basically human speech. It's a whole survival of the fittest thing, you know? It's so that you can discern human speech from ambient sound. You could be outside and you could be in the jungle, whatever,
right.
or construction site, whatever. You can pick out from a decent distance what speech is and what other noises are. What happens, is particularly with musicians or guys in construction, anywhere where you have loud sound, usually the loud sound that's really going to do the damage is the high-end stuff, things of higher frequency, because the waves are breaking that much more often, you know? And what happens is, initially, if you do a gig and it's like really loud, and then you get some sleep at night, what happens is, firstly, as there's these little hairs called cilia inside your ear, and they bend over from the force of the wave going into your ear. Right? And if it's nice and quiet, you know, and you don't hear some noise for a little while, they usually just pop right back up and you don't wind up with any problems.
Right.
But what happens is when you do that on a constant day-to-day basis, when they bend down, they don't pop back up anymore. Instead, what they do is they dry up,
Right.
and they break off, you know? And the problem with that is you've now started something called degenerative hearing loss. And it starts with your ears becoming sort of, for lack of a better explanation, I'm not an ear doctor, I just have had this explained to me. Your ears get out of tune and it can't any longer discern human speech. So what the body decides to do is retune the ears to what it thinks is human speech. And usually it's really loud, high noises because that's what it's supposed to think, right? Right, so the high noises, that's why you hear this tone. It's called tinnitus. And it actually, for some people, it never goes away. And some people have actually been driven to hospitalization for
Insanity.
mental problems because of it.
I can
You know.
usually I'll sleep it off.
Usually, yeah, right. Because as long as you know the next day you don't have big problems, and you were sitting right on the monitor, usually it's not a problem, but it can be. And drummers, we're sitting in the belly of the beast here.
So tell me this. Okay. So see, this is the thing when it comes to playing with plugs. You know, a lot of times with gigs you have the innies and the ears and stuff like
Right.
How does that work?
Well, I had my plugs made by an audiologist. I usually tell my kids, look, if you're going to play something really loud, go to an audiologist and have some plugs made, because it's the same guy that makes hearing aids. So you're either going to see him now or you're going to see him later.
Right.
Right? I had them made because I have a mild latex allergy. So the ones that you like roll up and you put in your ear and
Squeeze.
yeah. If I put those in and I do a 10 to 2 gig, at 2:30 I pull them out, and there's no audible difference having them in, having
I'm
them out.
asking, how do you start the gig if you have earplugs in and you're gonna wear innies? Like,
Oh, yeah, that's an issue. So the best thing to do, if you have innies, see if you can get ones that are actually sound isolation, because that's the reason. If you notice,
What?
I don't play with plugs in when I'm in here because I have these on. These are
Well,
sound isolation. Then there's a difference between
that was
sound
my next
isolations,
question.
sound isolation headphones, and ones that what is the other thing that everybody like when you're on the plane, and it noise canceling. It's not the same thing.
see now, wearing headphones at a gig and having earplugs as well. You've done that?
I have. It's
You're
but
just gonna have to wind
when
up
you have the
turning your
innies, the
headphones
innies
up
look a
louder
little
and louder.
right.
That's all you're doing is turning up your headphones louder.
Yeah. It can be an issue. Usually when I'm playing live and I have no innies, I wear the plugs. No one can even see them, and usually I'll have a wedge monitor face towards me, so I can hear everything fine over the drums. Because I've been, I usually play fairly smaller clubs, or if I'm outside, they have like a nice PA going, so it's usually not an issue. But with innies, it could be an issue. But the whole idea behind the innies is that you shouldn't have to turn them up too loud, because if they're properly sealed on the outside, the drums are already isolated away.
You couldn't even wear earplugs if you're wearing innies.
No,
Did you
no,
ever see-
it replaces the earplug.
Did you ever see This Is It, the Michael Jackson movie?
No, I have not.
He hated them. Oh my gosh.
Well, if you've never
If you-
worn them before,
Oh,
and you get to the level that guy was, and then all of a sudden, okay, just reinvent the way you do
That's what he said.
everything.
That's what he said.
Yeah.
He said,
That's a
I
problem.
learned how to do stand steps, etc., through monitors and, things of that nature. He said natural audio. He
Right.
said, and now you asking me to put this in my ear. He said, it feels like a fist is being stuffed in my ear.
Sure.
That's exactly
Sure.
what he said. And he
Right.
took them off. He said, it feels like you're jamming a fist inside my ear.
Oh, well, even with my plugs,
Hated them.
when I wear plugs,
He just took them out.
yeah, and then deal with it, But it makes things easier for the production crew than it does for the actual artist. We, like, when you're recording and you've got some guy that's a real stickler, he's like, he's got that, click going like, and it's way, way, way louder than the music is, right? And it's literally making your teeth hurt. And if you're even the slightest little bit off of that thing, he'll stop and say, dude, you can totally fix that in the digital environment to begin with,
Of course you could.
right? And what you're doing is destroying the natural flow of my playing.
Right.
If you want a drum machine, I can program one for you. But if that's not what you want, if you want some natural playing, play within it and then do your job as a production guy. Otherwise, you don't even have to touch my track.
Right.
But when I play with plugs, I put them in about 20 minutes to a half an hour beforehand, and then I go talk to the audience, because this way your body will adjust to them. Otherwise, it's literally like you got a monster putting both hands on your
Never in
ears.
my life
You
used
get-
plugs.
They're hard to use, and the ones that I have are solid. They don't even have the filters in them because I wanted to take out the maximum 33
This is a good
decibels of sound out.
conversation. I'm gonna start to look into plugs.
Yeah, just during, you don't even,
I play so much in a nightclub.
yeah, well, just during your practice,
That as well.
you know,
That
if it's
also.
gonna bother your performance, then you'll have to make it a decision. But in practice, if you're really chopping wood,
And I'm practicing a lot now.
good,
You know.
yeah, good.
Yeah, you're right. Wearing plugs during practice also. I
Yeah.
didn't consider. I didn't even think about that.
You only get two, and they have not perfected bionics yet.
Right.
So, till they do, take care of them.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's tech talk. Let's go on to what you've been doing. Like I say, I've known you since high school, and we were both drummers at the Westbury school system. And what have you been doing since then? Take me on a general timeline. You don't have to hit
Right.
all the points if you don't want to. Just the stuff you think's important.
Well, where I am right now. I've been DJing, in the commercial world for quite some time now. Radio, a lot of corporate gigs, a lot of gigs with some celebrities, and professional groups, Salt and Pepper. I do MD work for them and filling with DJ work also for Spinderella. Dougie Fresh, I've been DJing for him for the last 20 some odd years. I started out on Hot 97 with Ed Love and Dr. Dre in the morning. Everyone.
Dr. Dre, at least we all know, also a Westbury guy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, my DJ career has pretty much has rooted me in the music business.
Right.
I'll say that. It's grounded me in the music business. And I've always, like you say, I've been a drummer my entire life, die-hard lifer, and I've wanted to make a contribution to the drum community and to the music community also with some of the styles and some of the drum techniques that I admire.
Right.
Now, that's a broad statement to say. So let me break that down. Growing up in late 70s and all of the 80s, going to the 90s, and transitioning and being a DJ going into that career. So now that's the urban world,
Right.
So now I grew up listening to all styles of music. Kiss was my favorite group.
Right.
Run DMC and LL Cool J blasted in my house also. Motley
Right.
Crue, Ozzy Osbourne, Def Leppard, all the way to Fat Boys.
Cool.
And on the weekends, I was going to Juilliard and studying Tchaikovsky, Handel, Sibelius, Dvorak, etc.
Right. So you have the full palette, which I find a lot of drummers, myself included. That's sort of our strength. Is for some reason we get bored easily. So we do reach out to appreciate more different types of
Go around the
music.
world.
Right. Right.
And that's where I am now. So that's what I want to bring to the music world and the percussive world in general. For the most part of my life, no, all of my life, I've played trap set. I've played on the drum set.
Mhm.
That's an American art form. This
Sure.
is it.
Right. Mhm.
And where I am right now, I'm going more into like the hand percussion and to the Afro-Cuban dynamics and Brazilian. I want to learn world rhythms more. I want to have that more in my vocabulary than I do now.
Right.
And I don't have enough of that where I'm satisfied. So I'm actually studying with two different people right now.
Who?
Well, not Eric Perdomo is like a guy that's out here on Long Island. He's an incredible timbali player, and I go to him for my Afro-Cuban stuff.
Cool.
And he's played with some of me, on most of my stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. Johnny Armendra is out in Harlem. That's a guy I've studied with him one time, but I'm gonna go and seek him out.
Okay.
So hand percussion is definitely a place right now I want to be for probably the next, I'll say about 2.5, 3 years. I'm going to continue to play drum set, but something I've noticed with hanging out and studying and watching a lot of those guys
Right.
is
Don't worry about the phone. I'm just gonna
um, do you edit this afterwards or not?
No, we don't even need to. Like it can do what it's doing. This is
Okay,
this
'cause
is
I can
natural.
pause and then I'll let
Nope,
you
it's organic. That more than likely, that's a telemarketer. That makes it even more natural because everybody gets at least 10 of those a day at this point.
Cool.
So,
So, you know, what I've noticed about what guys that went from hand percussion and that came to drum set, they play drum set like they play hand percussion
Right.
or timbales. So if you notice, like Sheila E., or what she does is timbales and a lot of those rhythms, they start out like the accent will be at the end.
Right. Right.
You know,
That's what they're used to.
right. Now,
Right.
us as drum set players, we're always on that one. It's that
Right.
we're giving the beat to everybody.
Right.
But the guys that are playing auxiliary
Right.
percussion, they're playing around.
Right.
So when they came and they applied that here, oh, they're a beast. They're like an octopus over
Right.
here.
Yeah. Right.
They're like an octopus, and they're just doing everything, and they're on the beat, and they're off the beat, and it's incredible. So I'm gonna go and reverse my learning now.
Oh, there's if the future of the drum set is four-way independence.
Yes.
And Afro-Cuban is a great way to do that because traditionally Afro-Cuban musics are usually played with a troupe of people of between 6 and 8 people, and we got to distill that all down into one person. So sometimes, like if you're talking about doing like a bembe or something like that, right? You have to distill the cowbell part and the other down to basically one hand. So the cowbell
left
part,
foot.
yeah, the cowbell part is a. If you're thinking of it in a 6/8 thing, right? So it'd be like. Right? Then you have the timbales, you have all of these things that have to come together, and we have to do the whole thing.
And fill it all in
Right. Yeah.
at the same time.
So yeah, and it's not a simple just straight eighths,
No.
something like. And we start learning our independence by doing jazz, which we have the 2 bop notes, a 1, 2 to 3, 4 to 1, 2 to 3, 4 to 1, And then now with more modern jazz, we play a little fast and loose with that, especially if it's like half note at 120, as opposed to going. Instead, you went ding 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 ding. Things of that nature. Yeah, just because it makes it a little less rigid. When you practice, it's a great idea to just hold on to the 2 bop notes, just because then you have a constant. So when you're changing other things, you're not changing so many things that you're losing your focus.
Right.
But yeah, it's definitely, and I encourage a lot of my kids to get into like double bass, not so that you can just play all of these blast beats and everything that are so popular right now, which now has become more of a like an athletic event than it is music. In a lot of people, well, at least in my eyes, let's just say it that way.
Right.
But to be able to use our feet independently, you may want to put like a little on one side, and add another hi-hat. The reason why these kits are set up the way they are is because I was always sensitive. I've had some left-handed people, and if you're a left-handed person on a left-handed drum set, it's a little off-putting when you go to a lesson, because my lessons here are a half an hour long. Traditionally, you can still do an hour if you want, but normally it's a 30-minute lesson. Now, it's going to take you 5 minutes to move everything around if you're a left-handed guy, and another 5 minutes to move them back, because what are you going to expect the other guy to do that?
Right.
All right, so now 10 minutes of your lesson
Right.
is spent just being a hardware man, right?
Right.
Okay, so, all right, so that's 20 minutes out of a half an hour lesson. Where does that other 10 minutes go? Is that my 10 minutes I got to eat? You have to eat it? Does the other student have to eat it on either side of you? I didn't think that was fair. So I just set it up so that you could at least rudimentally play anything that you needed to. There's a ride on either side, there's a hi-hat on either side, there's a floor on either side, just so that you can, without changing one single nut, you could just keep things as is, and you can just do your lesson. And one of the reasons why I was so sensitive to it was not just because I had left-handed students. I used to play left-handed when I first started playing.
I remember one time I saw you and you told me everything that you were able to do right-handed that you wanted to start practicing and doing left-handed. And you said, I'm not going to use my right hand anymore, D. I'm going to do everything that I'm able to do righty. I'm
Right.
going to do lefty. And I'm just going to practice that for the next however long.
Sure, yeah,
To
and
accomplish
you
that.
know,
Where are we now?
I'm doing all right.
A few years ago, I remember you told me this. I saw you somewhere.
there's a lot of things that now I reached an impasse where there's certain things that I'll do better left-handed than right-handed, and things that I do better right-handed than left-handed, just because I'm what you call semi-ambidextrous. Whenever I start a new anything, like if I box left-handed. If I throw a ball, it's left-handed. If I bowl, it's right-handed. If I shoot a gun or an arrow or something like that, it's right-handed. There's no rhyme or reason to it either. I have better finger dexterity in my left hand than my right hand, so I became like the world's worst piano player.
Okay.
You know? But, yeah, so...
The best worst piano player.
Yeah. If piano was the same thing as drums, it wouldn't have been a problem. That's one of the things I love about drums is it's so malleable. There's, when you have a keyboard, you could put Stevie Wonder in front of a keyboard, and as long as they're all the traditional size, he's not going to have a problem at all once he's sitting there,
Did
But
you ever see? I'm sorry to interrupt.
Go ahead,
Did
go
you ever
ahead.
see this? It's on YouTube. It's been on YouTube for a few years. It's this guy. I think if you Google it, you Google it as drummer at wrong gig.
yeah, this dude, he's got his arms flail, he's doing all of these flips with his sticks and all of this other stuff.
It's a wedding gig, right?
Oh yeah, he's got the bright orange suit on, and he's got the big double kick kit, and I think he's playing like a Van Halen song or something like that. Oh yeah, and he is
Tommy Lee or something with the
he is
spins and-
into it. Yeah.
He's doing yo.
Well, there's another guy that takes that to an extreme. His name is Dylan Elise.
Oh, but he's good.
Oh my God, that guy's a monster.
No. I sent you an email
More than likely. Yeah.
about 2 weeks ago about Dylan Elise.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
I have to look for that.
Oh,
Maybe it didn't come
dude.
through.
Well, I've been watching him. Let's talk about this guy because I have something to say about him.
Okay.
If you ever hear this, Dylan Elise, I love you. Let's start there. As a drummer, I respect everything you have brought to.
Oh boy, something's coming. Go
World.
ahead.
Okay. I have been really following him.
Okay.
I've watched all his 19-year-old videos when he's 19, 18, etc. Him on the street, shirtless, the chicks, the whole nine.
With the really
yards.
weird tan thing going on with the what was that all about?
Yeah, the hair backwards, and he's got the whole thing going on. And those are the videos. Like, for any drummer to watch, you just watch it and just salivate, and you're just like, I wish I can do that.
Mm-hmm.
He's a big deal now.
Yeah.
He's sponsored.
Sure.
He's doing clinics. He's on records.
YouTube will do that for you.
He's a big deal now. And he's also older, and he's gotten bigger. And I'm noticing, it appears, that all of those tricks,
Going away.
because he's so muscular now. Like he's
A lot of them have to.
He's like you, for real.
Right.
He's like a big dude. He's like you,
Right.
There's but so much you can do because of your physique.
Right.
When he was younger and he was more like me or whatever, he was more limber and
Right.
all the stuff. Dude,
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Now try to with all the muscles he has now. I've seen him do it. It doesn't look the same.
No.
And being it doesn't look the same, it also, as a drummer, it doesn't sound the same.
Right.
And I can hear it.
Right.
Chicks and all that stuff, the people out there that's dancing and just watching whatever, they can't hear that. But a trained ear, I can hear, dude,
You do have
he's
to
big
when
and
you're
muscular now.
when you're a larger guy, you have to make sure that you're aware of whether you're playing with hammer hands. You have to, like, I make sure I never play with anything bigger than a 5A. I was playing with fat back 3As for a long time because I got tired of paying for sticks. And I was playing with a lot of very loud groups, so playing heavy-handed was acceptable when they had the amps all the way up.
I'm
But
talking
you
his
lose a
tricks.
lot. Yeah, your tricks, and more importantly, because, all right, I've before YouTube.
And he's still the best. And I still say he's the best.
Yeah.
I gave him a little criticism
Right.
with love, but he's still the best to me.
Yeah, he's a terrific drummer. Look, we all know how many
Way beyond.
how many guys personally. This is one question I plan to ask every guest. Give me a few lists. Give me a list of guys that influenced you while you were learning first, and then give me a list now that you are at the stage you're at now.
Mm-hmm.
Guys that you still admire.
Well, my list remain the same, but there are a few that I've picked up. Buddy Rich is definitely at the top of the list then and now.
Yeah.
For everything.
Oh, for sure.
For technique, for showmanship, for excellence, for perfection, for precision, name it. You know,
Yeah.
as far as playing and knowing the instrument of drums.
Sure.
Buddy Rich is number one growing up. I was a big fan of Dennis Chambers growing up as well.
Yes.
Huge fan.
Yes.
Jeez.
Oh, still.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also with the Baltimore sweep and the.
Bernard Purdy, you know, the shuffle.
Oh, come on, yeah.
You know, those guys when I was growing up.
One of the most recorded guys of all time.
Right. I still have. I recently bought from iTunes a record that I didn't had on CD, Rich vs. Roach. Have you ever heard that album?
I have. I own a vinyl
I had that.
of the other really big one that was on Verve Records. It was Buddy Rich and Gene Krupa.
Krupa.
Yeah.
Rich vs.
And everybody was like, "Oh, you can't tell the
You have
difference
vinyl?
between the two." What's that?
You had.
I have it.
Oh, okay.
Have it on
Wow.
vinyl.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good. So you know, growing up, those guys were, you know, my heroes. Let me talk about today as well, because you.
Right.
I like Tony Royce Jr. I like what he's doing. I love what he's doing.
Well, you have to if you're like Dennis.
Right.
Because that's, it was him and Tony Williams that really gave him his chops.
I like Aaron Spears, man. The dude is.
Oh, in the pocket, just bam. Yeah.
Oh my God. Like, yeah. Aaron Spears.
You know who's another guy like that? Who's the guy playing with Paul McCartney right now? Really big dude, bald. Oh, I don't remember what his name
I
is.
don't know.
Always has good time playing.
And
Always
you
in the
just
pocket.
You mentioned Dylan. You know,
Yeah.
my top guys today probably are, you know, I love Dylan, Aaron Spears, and Tony. I like for this school. For
Right.
You know, if I were growing up today,
Mm-hmm.
you know, yeah, those guys. You know, and some of the legends, Steve Smith, you know, Greg Bissonette, you know, those guys. Did
Yeah.
you go to the second Buddy Rich Memorial here when they had it in the 90s here? And it was called the Ritz back then.
As I went to the
Marcus Finney Smith.
another fantastic.
That was growing up for me as well. Continue.
I went to the very first one.
In L.A.?
That's not the first one. The first one was here. It was at the Westbury Music Fair. Yeah, and the lineup was very similar. Steve Gadd, Vinnie Colaiuta, Greg Bissonette, Dave Weckl,
What?
my teacher Al Miller. Who else was there? Joe Morello. At that point, he was completely blind. Still played like a monster because he's a really nice guy and was
It's
really
before the
nice to
LA
his
one.
drum tech. He's before the LA one. Yeah. They read a letter from someone who was actually invited, but he couldn't make it. So he said, if you have another one, I'll be sure to make it. That was Phil Collins. So he didn't make it. But, oh, and another guy that was there, wow, I'm having a senior moment. Jim, massive teacher around here. Oh, another guy that was there, because I do believe it was actually sponsored by the Long Island Drum Center. It was,
Jerry.
no, not Jerry. It was Dom Famularo. Dom Famularo was another guy.
He's good with Latin.
Yeah, he is.
His Latin rhythms.
Yeah.
I watch him on YouTube.
His site's kind of. I haven't been to it in a while, but for a while his site was split. One side of it was teaching drums, another was motivational speaking.
Really?
He's a character, that guy, boy. Tell
I
you.
put some symbols for him.
But it was funny. I want to talk a little bit more about that show because not only was it a monster show, um, but at the time, the drum center was at Charles Court in Belmore. And Phase One Studios from Farmingdale had a little satellite deal. They were trying to put a studio over there, and they did.
Right.
And it lasted for a while, but that's a dead end street, and I guess it didn't work. But what they did is the drum center rented their place out for the day so that all of these guys could practice. And Vinny Colaiuta was practicing hours and hours and hours and hours. And I didn't witness this myself, but one of the fellas at the drum center told me that he was practicing for so long, and his wife, at the time, was there at the drum center, just kind of hanging out, because the drum center's like Mecca for drummers. It's torture if you're not a drummer,
Right.
And she was there for hours and hours while we practiced, and he finally emerges, I think I'm ready. And the reason why is because his idol was Steve Gadd. He was going to share the stage with. As a matter of fact, there was a three-way sort of a drum trio between Weckel, Colaiuta, and Gadd.
And Westbury.
Yeah, actually, I think there were four guys because I think Bissonette was part of that. If you look online, you look on YouTube, you'll find the trio that played in L.A., but the one in Westbury was, I think, four guys. But he was so nervous that the guy he was going to share the stage with, that he was just chopping wood, and his wife knew. He says, I think I'm done. And she goes, Vinny, why don't you go in there and play some more? And he goes, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. Back in there for more hours. That guy's a dedicated player. And so unbelievable, this guy. Sometimes he's not just done a lot of the stuff like, he played with Zappa. He's not just done stuff like that. He's done things that are like pop, and he's just look him up and look his discography up. It's crazy. I talked about it in the last one, but still, there's a bunch of guys. Purdy, Steve Gadd,
Right.
Colaiuta. These are guys whose entire careers.
Anton Fig.
Another guy, just a monster. He's from New Zealand originally, right? I think so, or Australia, one of those places. He was
Google his discography.
Yeah, crazy. Some of the guys we're talking about,
Anton
what they do in a year is way more than most guys do in their career.
Yeah. And they have regular, gigs as well.
Right.
They're still recording.
Sure, because they're players. And, a lot of time as a drummer, you're a hired hand. But you have ideas of your own. You want to get them down somewhere.
Right.
But it always seems to take a back seat to paying the bills and whatever.
And that's why when we get an opportunity to do our own, CD or whatever, or your own project, you
Right.
usually just shed and go all out.
Oh, absolutely. Speaking of which, some of you tell me about some of these. You've lived in a world that is. I listen to hip hop casually. I listen to a lot of different stuff. I don't profess to be an authority on any of it, but let me just.
These are both 5/8s?
Yeah. Do they feel different? Because
Impossible.
Yeah, they're both 5A. Yeah, no, what it is, they usually match. These are ones that I leave for the kids because they break sticks constantly, and they break my sticks constantly. So those two are not matched, actually. So some of them are way heavier. But, wood's a natural substance. You ever tried playing with things other than wood sticks?
No.
You try the heads and all those other things?
So speaking of which, since we're on this conversation, I see you have nylon tips.
Yeah.
Is that what you usually use? And
I do, and the reason why I prefer the sound.
I do too. I prefer the sound.
Right.
But
Right. Well, that's the big thing for me is a wood tip. A wood tip has a tendency to chip, and the wood underneath the main part, which has actually been machined with a lathe, which is much harder. When you get into the meat, it's chunkier. So you get that kind of chalky sound. Plus, now it's not round totally, so you don't get that nice decisive strike that you do with the nylon tips. And I mean, all of the old.
But these are more damaging to your cymbals. True fact or fiction?
I don't
No,
think they are. As a
again,
matter of
this is like
fact,
a fact.
if you ever play
Conversation.
electronics, like if you're playing with V drums,
Which I don't. I only play
they
with-
say only play with nylon tips.
Really?
Because the fibers from the wood, as they start to break down, will actually grab on and chew at the those mesh heads.
Yeah, I like the way nylons sound better. But again,
Yeah.
fact or fiction, you know, they do more damage to your heads and to your cymbals than wood sticks.
I've not heard that, to be honest with you. I'm not sure that that's look. Anything usually the damage is done by the end user. It's usually either you don't let your cymbal, like some guys, especially the younger guys, like to have their things taut because, well, there's more screw there. Just turn it down and make sure that this thing's touching this. Yeah, but then you're not letting this thing move.
I know.
And when you don't, also having these things, having them up this way, bad idea. The
Everything is-
closer to 90 degrees you get with a cymbal, the more likely it is that you're going to crack it.
Listen, everything nowadays is flat. I don't get it. Their tom is way over there, and it's
Oh,
100%
and everybody's
flat
everybody's sitting up like they're surveying their property, like way up like this. I
Yes.
can't play like
I
that.
can't.
No, I gotta have my leg has got to be pretty much where from my knee to my hip is pretty much parallel to the floor. I can't.
Yes, and a floating tom, should be comfortable to reach.
Sure,
If it's going to be 100% flat, I'll call that a floor tom.
sure,
That's not a floating tom anymore. It's
Right,
It's
right.
over here. It's a floor tom.
sure, right. Plus, well, I couldn't do it if I wanted to with this kit because these are all power toms.
Right.
So if I put these things flat, I'd have to get 20-inch bass drums or 18-inch bass drums to bring those things down to the point where I could hit them that way. This one would wind up somewhere around there.
Right.
And
like you said, the cymbals are even flat now as well.
That's just insane to me. And that's the reason why these guys watch all these cymbal companies are going to stop with all of these warranties because it's just going to cost them like a ridiculous amount of money because it's not the physics behind what it is. Look, you have two trees in the forest. One of them's a little maple sapling,
Right.
and one of them's a 100-year oak. Hurricane happens. Which one's left standing? The sapling, because it could bend down to the ground, right?
Yes,
Come back
it
up
has-
again.
it has
Right.
flexibility.
It's one of the reasons why I'm not a big fan of synthetic sticks. A stick is flexible. When you bring a stick, you're going to hit your snare drum parallel, so that your rim is touching here, right? And if I just bring this thing down like this, now I actually had this way, right? I didn't come in this way, but I still hit. Why? Because the front of this stick flexes and comes down and hits
It's
this.
give.
Right. When you have the head sticks, which are basically made out of aluminum, it's like the difference between having
That's not good for your wrist.
an ash bat and an aluminum bat. It's what happens is, and I mean, they're great for guys who are just going to go running through sticks like crazy. If that's the way you play, more power to you. There's absolutely a purpose for them. But for me, I bought a pair of those things in a 5A, and I usually play with 5As just to try them out. And I noticed after playing for the same amount of time, I was more tired. Because if the stick doesn't give, you give. And all of that goes back up into you. It's like hitting a telephone pole with a baseball bat.
Andy, I remember one time, much younger in my, drumming experience, I was experimenting with different sticks.
Right.
And I tried some ProMark oak sticks. Ouch.
Yeah, they're a little bit more rigid.
Oh,
Yeah.
ouch. Whew.
And I like oak too, but I prefer hickory.
For not using,
You know.
not hitting oak. though.
Right.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
can have oak for something else, but using them to play all night,
Yeah.
the shock. Whoa.
That and they have a tendency to splinter more. So like if you play off your rim a lot, which I do, you'll notice when I have a pair of sticks, if I can actually keep them for long enough, it'll just look like I was chewing on the middle of them,
hickory.
right? Yeah. Okay. Well, you do that with an oak stick, and they start to splinter in here. Next thing you know, you're pulling them out from underneath your fingernails. It's
I don't like oak.
yeah. I prefer hickory.
Yeah.
Most people do.
I don't. Yeah. Do they still make oak sticks? I don't see them on the market like
Promark.
they were in. Yeah.
Look, they up until Yamaha started making them, I didn't see oak drums. They're the first ones that started. And one of the reasons why is when you ply oak, it's much trickier. You know, it has a tendency. Yeah, you have to drill pilot holes in everything. Everything splinters.
It's not a good wood for this.
It's a way. The reason why they wanted to come out with it is because it's way harder than maple.
Have you played on an oak kit?
I have. I prefer birch.
Over maple or
Yeah,
oak?
over both. I prefer birch. I like it. They just sound warmer
I
to
don't
me.
think I've played on an oak kit. How does an oak kit sound?
A little
Oak is not good for drums.
little brighter than maple because it's harder. You know, it's not like when you get into like we're really talking shop with the like if you get into like a Brady kits out of Australia, they use wood that's indigenous of Australia, which can be found. There's two that they use most often. The most often one that they use is called Jara, and it's way harder than like ironwood or it's a hard wood. They're really pretty.
I know.
It almost looks like a bibinga kind of a.
Those.
Yeah, well, the one time I heard Steve Jordan playing on one of the Brady drums that was made out of something called Wandu. Wandu is so hard they can't make applied drum. They have to make it stave as if you're making a conga drum because it's that hard.
It's one wood.
Yeah, it's just so they would make it out of blocks, right? Cut the blocks at certain angles so they bring it in,
that's
and
like
then
a conga,
then they lay the exactly. That drum, wow, it was like a bullet. It was so
Right.
loud. It was like a metal drum, but it was
Right,
wood.
right.
Yeah. But I prefer birch over everything. I just this is my
Even in recording?
even especially for recording. A lot of these are Yamaha Recording Customs. That's my other kit in there. Recording Customs
That's what I was
are
thinking
all
about just
birch.
now. Recording
You
custom.
know,
The most,
because
that's probably the most popular recording drum set around.
yeah, and they say that it's quote unquote naturally equalized. So it's going to be a mid range of every sound for every drum, so that it's much easier to goof around with it later on in post production.
You have a set.
Yeah, that's my gigging kit right now. It's
You
a
get
little
with that one.
yeah. The drums are a little big because it was I bought it used and I got it for a good price, but it's all Tommy Aldridge from Whitesnake and Ozzy, all his sizes. So it's like
it's
this
huge.
massive 24-inch bass drum,
Oh, jeez.
which
Only
you
one?
know, just because I use a double pedal for that. I prefer two bass drums over a double pedal because this way there's no when you're playing with a double pedal. Let's say you're doing something like a real simple, something that wouldn't even normally
Play. Let's get some play.
yeah, something that wouldn't even normally require that you have two bass drums. It's just something simple like right? When you play
You play
with a
your
double
left foot.
yeah, I play. Yeah, well, I could play it. Obviously, you could play it both with the right foot, but I was going from right to left. If you do something even as simple as that, right, with a double pedal, the right one is going to rest on the skin while the left one comes down. So, what do you got? You have two different actions, right? Because the left foot's going to feel different,
Okay.
right? You'll never have that when you have double bass because the feet are separated. You know, it's just isolated one from the other. There's advantages of the double pedal. Firstly, you don't have to hump around the second bass drum to your gig. You can get a smaller car, you know, and you only have to tune one drum. I mean, look, you can hear. I have not tuned these things since the beginning of the summer, so you can definitely hear a pitch difference. Definitely a difference, you know, when you're playing. When you're playing, you want to put a couple of things. You know, you can hear it. You can hear it. It's not as obviously when notes are going by that fast, you're not going to notice it as much, you know. But if you're going like something of that nature, you can obviously hear it, you know. But you know, while I'm down here, I'm not necessarily that worried about it, you know. But okay, so tell me more about what is it you do when you're doing a DJ gig?
Entertain the crowd. You know, it depends on what is called for. You know,
Right.
For example, if I'm doing a nightclub, that is usually something that's an extended thing, where I may start at 11 o'clock and end at 3 o'clock in the morning. And that's like a 4-hour situation that calls for
Oh,
me
sure.
to be a marathon man and pace myself a certain way.
Right.
When I'm doing something where I'm opening up for a band or whatever, and it's just me by myself, then it's boom, just run and gun. I'm here for an hour or a half hour, and I'm on 10 the entire way. There is no pacing yourself.
Right.
When it's a situation where I'm DJing for an artist, Salt and Pepper or Dougie Fresh, whatever, I'm like the drummer. I'm doing songs,
Right.
So it it's all in, what's calls for in the gig.
Right. Okay. Now, you've been doing it for a long time now, and
Yeah.
you've also noticed a big difference in hip hop from the time we were going to school till now.
Huge.
Yeah. In and through the entire change into gangster rap and everything else, and how has that changed your role?
I have to stay on top of things. That means what's hip now, you better be on top of it or you don't have a gig.
Sure.
Bottom line.
Right.
You can't buck the system, can't fight the system. You want to work, be on top of what the young kids want to know, what they want to hear. Still giving them what your experience and everything.
Mm-hmm.
The guys, they call me OG. That's an original gangster or old gangster. That's what they call
Right.
someone that they respect. It's
Right.
not like I'm a gangster, but they'll call
Right.
you that out of respect.
Sure.
So I wouldn't be in that position if I weren't on top of the now.
Right.
That's what we call it, as in when musicians will call it, yo, you gotta be in the now.
Right.
You just gotta stay in the now.
Okay.
A lot of people will fight the now, criticize the now. Oh, well, back in my day, da-da-da-da. Well,
Right.
hey, if you want to live today, if you want to eat, and if you want to still gig today, you have to be with today.
What about the actual, like, the culture of it during performance? Is there more violent activity going on during gigs that you have to be aware of and maybe have to, keep one eye on? Less.
I lived through the crack era
Right.
in New York City.
Yeah.
So we saw a lot of crime. I lived through the Gotti era
Yeah.
in New York City.
Mm-hmm.
I lived through an era where there wasn't cell phones and everybody's hip, where you were filming everything, where everything was
Right.
captured, where people weren't thinking about what they would do prior to doing it. Everyone thinks twice, and third time, and a fourth time before they do anything today, because they know I could be on camera.
Right.
Back then there was Candid Camera, which came on once a week or whatever.
Right.
Today,
Right.
People
Or
don't do that,
TV
those type
bloopers,
of
practical
things.
jokes, that kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm out there. It
Right.
doesn't happen because the minute something like that happens, there's a bunch of cell phones out.
Oh, yeah,
and
sure.
Hey, yo, people put their hand up. Yo, it wasn't all that, and blah, blah, blah. Then the situation all of a sudden is getting diffused.
Well, we're finding a lot of that actually even beyond what we do, even into regular society with now.
So the answer is no.
Yeah.
The violence has not increased.
Well, that's good.
growing
That's
up.
good to know.
Right.
That's good to know. What about how has the lack of album sales
Scary.
affected you?
Listen, man, if you're not doing this because you love it, I would not advise
Right.
anyone to do this because of that question. You have to love what you're doing. You have to love everything about this today and
Mhm.
moving forward in order
Right.
to do this.
Right.
Those big album sales, those big album releases, a Thriller album coming out, a We Are the World, a Van Halen's 1984 album coming out, a Sgt. Pepper coming out, the minute it comes out, that artist or that band takes a big hit, because piracy,
Right.
I mean, it's big. And if you don't really love making your own studio, painting your own walls, putting together your own kits, buying your own guitar. If you don't have that and you're putting everything into it because you love it or you're on a mission and I have to do this, I wouldn't suggest anyone do it because of
Right. The
lack of-
monetary gain is not. Well, my big thing, I've been saying this for a while. You tell me whether you agree. I've been saying that the last bastion of hope for music is live performance.
Yeah.
100 years ago, if you knew of somebody that you liked what they played like, what recourse did you have? You went and you
Only
bought a
one.
ticket, and you went and saw them play.
And you had to wait
Sure. You had to wait for them to hit your city. Unless, of course.
a year or two.
Right. Sure. Right. So that was, firstly, that was a big demand on, firstly, the artists themselves, because if they ever wanted anyone to come back again, they had to really bring it.
Or in a TV guide, if you saw him on a Merv Griffin show, you know what I'm saying? Like
Right.
once every year
Right.
or once,
Sure.
literally.
Right.
Or some of the great drummers that we admired were in, rock bands or in jazz bands. That jazz at that time was a dying art, and rock at that time was a rebellious art form. So you wouldn't see these guys.
Which is what jazz started out as. So, anything that becomes popular is like the bad boy of music, and then it eventually gets the respect it deserves. Provided, of course, it used to be, rock was king,
when
and
MTV first came out.
right, and now look, no form of music ever goes away. It finds its
Well,
audience.
MTV doesn't play music anymore. They play
No,
reality shows.
that's just, yeah, that's bothered me for 20 years now. I mean, look, it was okay if you had The Real World on, and it was just like a thing between shows that play music. But when you just shift your whole focus over to
Surreal
that.
World, right? Surreal World. That's what it was called.
Yeah,
That's the
the
first
Real World was the first one.
one. Oh, okay, that was the first
Right.
one.
Right. And that
Surreal World, that was a show also, wasn't it?
that yeah, it was. I do believe that's when they started taking celebrities and doing the same thing that they did with.
Oh, okay.
right.
See, I didn't even follow it back then.
Yeah, I only know it because I listen to a lot of talk radio and stuff where people have been making fun of these things for years. So
They don't play music anymore.
it's just ridiculous.
Yeah, they don't play music.
YouTube is now MTV.
That's where I get my education.
That's where I listen to all of it.
Yes.
That's why, if you'll notice on here, you have two screens. Because if we're gonna, what am I gonna do? I can't buy every song everyone's ever gonna be into, but I'm not comfortable stealing it
Likewise.
because I'm an artist
That's
too.
funny you just said that. And
So that's why I'm glad that Vivo's up there, because when you see Vivo, that means the artist or the company that represents the artist put it up there. So you're getting the quality that they're expecting, and if you're interested enough, then you will go out and you'll buy the
I
album.
didn't think that there was many of us like that. Recently, well, not recently, a day or
I don't
two
think
ago,
there are too many of us like
Okay.
that.
I got a $25 gift card from my nephew for Christmas.
Okay,
Shout
right.
to you, Anthony. And being that I am a DJ, I don't have to buy a lot of new music because it's sent to me.
Right.
And being that I am a DJ and a music lover also, most of the music that I grew up with, I have and own
You already own.
on CD. I've converted, etc. Bought the CDs, etc.
Right.
But there are a few things that had gone, through the
Slip between the cracks, sure. Right.
And when I got the $25 gift card, I said to myself, I'm going to wait to get something I really, really want. The Avengers movie came out, the second one. So I said, okay, when iTunes puts this out, I'm going to buy it, da-da-da-da.
Mm-hmm.
It came out about a week or two ago, about 2 weeks ago. So a few weeks ago it came out.
Right.
So I went to iTunes to go and purchase it. So before I did, and I saw it, and I was going to do it. And I said, you know what, let me go just looking for a few things. On the home page, they had an ad, CDs $9.99. Then next to it, CDs $5.99. And on it, there was a CD that I was interested in. I think it was Rat Invasion of Privacy. I think it was Invasion of Privacy album, I think, or whatever. Now, I own that album, but I was like, hey, that means they may have other albums that, I'm missing. I'm
Like-minded, sure.
So
right.
there's a few albums, like I said, I didn't have. I didn't have Kiss Alive 2, digitally remastered.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I had the vinyl, and I still
Sure,
have the vinyl.
right.
The tattoo, the
Right,
thing with
double
the book.
album.
Absolutely, I still have that. But I don't have it on CD. And I had a $25 gift card. I said, hey, let me go. And you just brought up, hey, I'm not comfortable with stealing music. I'm not either.
Right.
So, again, I know I'm dragging this out, but it really means a lot to us artists that do not steal music.
Right, because you would be a complete hypocrite if you were.
Yeah. I purchased that album for $7.99.
Yeah, an album that came out, what was that, 78?
Digitally remastered for iTunes. Downloaded, and it came to my computer within, 90 seconds. It was there. And I felt good. Yes. And I went and bought Rich vs. Roach. I think that was, $7.99 as well.
Wow.
For this, exactly. I spent, $15 or so. And I still have a few dollars left in there, And
Right.
yeah, I'm going to buy things that, I think I bought a few tracks from one of Omar Hakim's solo album. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like that, man. Yeah, and I'll shop around and I'll buy what I want. And not only that, it pays. You know why? Because now it's everywhere.
Right.
It's on my phone. It's on my iPad. It's like I don't have to go and,
Right.
it's everywhere because it's
Sure.
in iCloud. I can
Right.
access that anywhere I am.
Right. Yeah.
I can access it right here, right now.
Sure.
If I wanted to.
Right.
So, yeah, I'm like you. I'm not comfortable with stealing music, man. I'm
No.
just not.
No. Well, you do it for often enough and it just goes away. Because then, look, life is hard. We're all working ourselves to death. And if there are people that cannot make a living doing it, then the quality of it's going to,
That's why I DJ.
yeah. 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 It's tough. Well, listen, this was really cool.